I've used the scripter and arpeggiator MIDI plugins in Logic Pro to recreate the functions of the Telepathic Instruments Orchid that were important to me. The only items you will need are a 2-octave MIDI keyboard and Logic Pro. I am not a coder. I relied on Google Gemini to create this script, which is linked below, along with a short user manual. There are chapters in the description if you'd like to jump straight to the implementation, but stay tuned if you'd like context on why certain decisions and compromises were made. This is the Telepathic Instruments Orchid. If you're unfamiliar with it, it's a chord synthesizer developed in collaboration with Kevin Parker of Tame Impala. They've had an impactful social media campaign with Jermaine Clement and Matt Berry, as well as a legitimately entertaining series of videos called In the Backseat, where different artists perform songs using the Orchid in an old limousine. The Orchid is $699, and it's a price that included a case as well as an analog storage unit, which was a notebook. There's also an available plugin called Pistol. It gives you all the sounds that are on the Orchid and has features that interact with the physical unit, though it will also work with any MIDI controller, albeit with less functionality. There are plenty of tutorials on the functions and features on YouTube already. I've linked to a very thorough loop hop video in the description. I want to highlight the two major reasons this caught my interest. The first is obvious, and it's the chord engine. I can get around pretty well on the guitar, but I don't have the same facility on a keyboard, especially on more complex chords. This device removes that friction for me as I look to add textures beyond the guitar and bass. The manner of triggering the chords was important to me as well. I did not want to be locked into a certain key or chord shape as I've seen with some other devices. Most of the music I play is not in one key, so the ability to play a number of chord types without having to make edits to any menus or modify a library was very appealing to me. I also really liked the arpeggiator and strum options, as these would give me more options for movement as I played. The second reason I had an interest was the portability. I travel a lot for work, often for long stretches of time. I wanted something that I could take with me on my travels. I really abhor spending downtime in a hotel on my phone or on a computer. Time making music is important to me, so a device like this would enable that. I also like that it had built-in sounds and a battery, meaning I would not be tethered to a computer. Overall, I've been really happy with the Orchid. It's really fun and intuitive to play, and I've taken it on a few trips with me down to the office in Boston. So if that's the case, why am I looking for alternatives? While the Orchid is portable, it's not as portable as I need it to be. I travel very light. I am most often on public transit and walking down roads with uneven surfaces and staying in older buildings without elevators. The Orchid, even outside of its case, takes up too much space in my bag. I only check my tools and equipment. Everything else for me is a carry-on. There's also the issue of the value of the unit. Multiple times I've had items taken from me by customs agents as I enter a country for the flimsiest of reasons. I'd prefer to take something with me that is as small as possible and also inexpensive, so that if it's damaged or stolen, I won't lose any sleep. The other issue is my limited budget. This past Father's Day, I visited Drum Center of Portsmouth, and I left with an absolutely beautiful, used George Way Aristocrat studio kit. It wasn't something I'd been planning for, so when I returned home, I had to do an assessment of my studio and look around for things I could sell to make up for the purchase. If I could come up with a reasonable replacement, the Orchid had to go. Let's talk about requirements. Number one is that it had to be small, portable, and inexpensive. Ideally, I could repurpose something I already had and spend $0. Second is that it had to have the ability to play a multitude of chords with extensions in any key. It would be great if it mimicked the two-hand motion of the Orchid, with the left hand selecting the chord and the right a single note. Third, I wanted it to have the ability to strum, arpeggiate, and add bass notes when chords are selected. For compromises, I was willing to lose the battery, as it would make traveling easier should I need to put it in a checked bag. I was willing to forego the internal sounds. This would mean I would be tethered to my laptop, but that is something I carry with me when I travel already. There were some other features that I enjoyed in the Orchid, like the chord voicing knob and the onboard drums that I figured I could live without. When I was looking for alternatives to the Orchid, Google Gemini suggested a few hardware and software options, but I asked it about using items I already had on hand. It suggested using Scripter, which is included as a MIDI plugin in Logic. Gemini generated some initial JavaScript code for me. It was really basic, but I was able to iterate pretty quickly and meet my requirements within an hour. And it was amusing, or alarming, depending on how you look at it, at how confident Gemini was in code that just did not work. But with prodding, I got it working in a way that satisfied my needs. Let's look at how to set this up in Logic.
I'm here in Logic, and I've created a new software instrument track. I selected the retro synth, which is included in Logic Pro. Looking here at our track, there is an area above the synthesizer for MIDI effects. I've added the Scripter plugin, which has two components, this main window, and then there is a script editor. And if that doesn't open for you automatically, you can click it here, and then I see my script. Click inside this area, Command A to select everything, and then I want to paste in that code that is linked below. I will click Run Script, and two things will happen. I will see a message down here, evaluating MIDI processing script. Script evaluated successfully. I'll close this. And now I see that my Scripter plugin here has all these parameters. So when you see this, you know you've loaded it correctly. You should not get any errors. If you do, go back to the script document and make sure you copied everything. Close the editor. You may have noticed that there isn't an option in this application for arpeggios. That's because Logic comes with a free plugin that can handle this. I'm going to add the plugin to the channel. If this is something you're going to use again in the future, you can save it as a preset for easy recollection in future sessions. So I'll go here, click on Default Preset, say Save As. I'm going to name this Chord Engine. And now in any session I open in Logic, I can open this plugin and then choose this preset for Chord Engine, and I'll have my Chord Engine ready to go right here. Okay, the plugin will now work for playing, but there's one further step needed for recording. Right now, Logic will record the MIDI notes played by the keyboard and not the notes created by the plugin. This means that you're going to hear the notes created by the selection on the keyboard and not the intent of the plugin. So to capture the intent of the plugin, we will need to click on the arrows to the right of the plugin and select Record MIDI to track here. The plugin will then have a pair of orange arrows showing that this feature has been enabled. And now on playback, the chords that you've selected will be triggered. It also means you can edit them after the fact to change inversions or octaves. There are lots of steps getting this set up in Logic, and so you wouldn't want to have to do this in every session. It'd be a good idea to save this channel's settings. So if I click on the settings button up here, save channel strip setting as, I can name it. Now I've already done this. I've named it Chord Engine here. But once I save it, I'm going to have the option, when I click on settings in a new software instrument, I can go to user channel strip settings and I have this Chord Engine here. And what that does is it loads every single option I've already set up here. My scripter with the script in it with the right preset. I have an arpeggiator ready to go. I have the decent sampler here that I like to use. And then also I have this record to MIDI already enabled. So it's ready to go every time. You don't need much for hardware here, just a 2-octave MIDI controller. I'm using the Korg Nano Key Fold, which you can find for $120 new. I already had this on hand for travel, but it checks off the first box for my requirements. It's small, portable, and inexpensive, and this little fella folds up and fits in my carry-on bag very nicely. It also fits on the lower part of my MacBook Air where the mouse pad is, which means that I can use it really easily on, like I have an upcoming 14-hour flight to Asia, and it will be really nice to have that on the tray in front of me. You can only watch Die Hard so many times. My second requirement was to mimic the two-handed play style of the Orchid, with the chords selected with my left hand and root notes selected with the right. This application has accomplished this. The first option to look at in Scripter is this first option that lets you select the control octave, which functions like the chord selection buttons on the layout. The default is C2, but you can select others if you want. Whichever octave you will select will be silent when the keys are pressed. Let's take a look at the left-hand functions. Tap any of the white keys to select the foundation triad. Major on C, minor on D, suspended on E, diminished on F. You can add extensions on the black keys with a minor seventh on C sharp, major 7 on D sharp, add 6 on F sharp, and add 9 on G sharp. You don't have to hold down the selection key or hold the triad selection along with the extension selection. You can select your chord, and the right hand will play that selection until you select another. Switching to any new white key automatically resets all black key extensions. Let's look at this in practice. Remember that with the left hand, the keys are acting as the chord triad and extension selectors. I'm going to play an A major triad by selecting the C on the left octave and then the A note on the right octave. I'm now going to make this an A major 7 chord by selecting the D sharp key on the left. So I already have this triad selected. I'm going to select D sharp and the A key on the right. I'm now going to make this an A minor 7 chord by selecting the D and then the C sharp key on the left and the A on the right. I can clear the extensions with the B key in the left octave. The major and minor 7 extensions will cancel each other out when selected, but the other extensions can be stacked. I'm going to play a F sus chord by selecting the E key on the left octave and the F on the right. I'm going to add the 6th here by using the F sharp key in the left octave. Notice that because the sus key triad was previously selected, it is still active. I can add the 9 here by selecting the G sharp key in the left octave. All my previous selections are still active, making an F sus 6/9 chord. I can also clear an extension by selecting it again. I'm going to select the F sharp key in the left octave to deselect the 6th extension, which leaves me with an F sus 9. And I can clear all extensions by pressing the B key on the left octave. There are some further options in the plugin that we can select to add more Orchid-like functionality. There is an option for voicing. The default is to play the root, then the 3rd, and then the 5th of the chord. So here's the default in the root position. I'm going to play a G minor. The second option here is the 1st inversion. This moves the root note up an octave and leaves the 3rd on the bottom and the 5th in the middle. The third option is the 2nd inversion, which moves the root and 3rd up an octave. So this doesn't work exactly like the inversion engine in Orchid. The Orchid had that great thing where you could spin the wheel while doing this and flip all the inversions up and down, but this I think will satisfy my songwriting and voicing needs. I'm going to list this as one of the compromises. The Orchid has an option to play a bass note below the chord triad. It plays a root note and has the ability to select a different synth engine. This option is also available in the Pistol plugin. The drop-down I've added here allows you to choose bass notes in 3 octaves, but they will play using the same synth engine in the channel instead of a separate one. It doesn't route it to a different one, but I was okay with this. I'm going to choose the mid here, and I'm going to play my G again. And now you hear that bass note. The strum feature was something I really liked on the Orchid. There are 4 different selectors here to make your selections in Scripter. The first is to enable it with this checkbox. The second is to choose the strum direction in a drop-down. So right now I'm low to high.
The third is a rate slider in milliseconds. You can choose a low millisecond count for a fast strum or a high millisecond count for a slow strum. You can go up to 360 milliseconds. The final option is the octave range. You can select 1, 2, or 3 octaves. For arpeggios, I will use the built-in plugin in Logic. You will want to turn off strum as well as the bass feature. And now when I play, I can use this plugin to change the octave range, the variation. The rate. This all satisfies my third requirement. So what remains? The Orchid has a few basic drum patterns, but I have the ability to use loops, drum machines, even Superior Drummer in Logic. The final thing to discuss with giving up the Orchid would be the internal sounds. Would I miss having them? Well, I did purchase Pistol, so I could still use the sounds without the hardware, and the app is really cool. You can really get in there and change a lot of the sounds, change effects, that sort of thing. One thing I have to say is, with nearly limitless plugins available to me, I don't know that I would buy this again. First off, it's listed at $100 for non-Orchid owners. As an Orchid owner, I was able to purchase the plugin at a 50% discount, which was hard to swallow after spending $700 on this already. An option I really enjoy is Decent Sampler. I subscribe to David Hilowitz's Patreon for $5 a month. I download a monthly sample library, and they're all really interesting and really fun to play with. There's a lot of really cool options in there, and his videos are fantastic. I've linked his Patreon and his channel in the description below. I'm going to play an example demo track here to show you kind of how I want to use this. I make guitar-based music for the most part. I like to add texture with keyboards in these songs. Most of the chords in the song have extensions, and with my current keyboard playing ability, I would not be able to play along with this. But with this application and my little two-octave keyboard, as long as I know the chords, I can play along without issue. In a world with unlimited funds, I would keep the Orchid. It's a really great studio tool. I've been using it on all my demos. I love the form factor, and I've spent hours on the couch with it. I still would not travel with it, though. as I stated before, it's just still too bulky for my needs, and I think the solution I've come up with here will meet those needs. And I do have a drum set to pay for, so up onto Reverb it goes. As I stated in the intro, I'm not a coder. The links to the code as well as the user manual are in the description below. You are free to take the code and rework it however you'd like to add or remove features. One last thing I did want to address is something that I've seen stated, and it's that the Orchid makes it so that lazy people never have to learn music theory. While it's true that you could mash buttons on this like you were playing Super Smash Bros. And get sounds without knowing theory or even what root notes you were playing, I found that having some theory under your belt makes this a really fun tool and great for songwriting. You can very much lock in a specific key on the Orchid, but you can also play it without any key specified, which allows for modal mixture and chord substitution. There's also an option to have it show you all the notes in each chord, which could be a great learning aid, and it's something I'll be going without when I sell this. As always, I thank you for your time and attention, and I hope to see you next week.